You see what sending out them negative waves did, Moriarty?
But oddball, I did try and tell them, but they won't listen. I tried.
Sure.
But I did try.
Oh, man. Don't hit me with them negative waves so early in the morning.
But I can't force them to listen. I can't.
Always with the negative waves, Moriarty. Always with the negative waves.
Have a little faith, baby. Have a little faith.
But I keep trying. Oddball, I keep trying. But they won't listen. They won't tune in. They really won't.
Why don't you knock it off with them negative waves? Why don't you dig how beautiful it is out here? Why don't you say something righteous and hopeful for a change?
Tune in to Awake Radio for your positive waves.
Thank you for listening to Organic News here on Awake Radio, where we try to give you news that is organic. Thank you for tuning in to this Tuesday, July 29th of Organic News here on Awake Radio. I want to apologize. We missed last Tuesday's show. We had some technical difficulties going on, but we are here with a really great show. Today there was civil disobedience action here in New York City at 42nd and 2nd Avenue with Norman Finkelstein, who is calling on the public to show up for civil disobedience. That is all on film. I would have had him on the show, but unfortunately he was arrested and detained for a few hours. He might actually be out by now. So the first guest is going to be Dr. BELAL DaBOUR, a physician at Shifa Hospital in Gaza. And I actually recorded it just about 45 minutes ago. He was going to be live. That was the plan. And I wanted to test out the number beforehand to make sure that it worked. So I tried calling him at 5:15, and he answered. And I was, telling him, okay, I'm testing the number. I'll call you back in 45 minutes, which would have been now, but he had requested that we did it then. So I just used my camera to record it, and here is the interview. It's just about almost 20 minutes of Dr. BELAL DaBOUR at Shifa Hospital in Gaza about 45 minutes ago.
On my computer.
Okay, so tell us what's going on over there.
Yeah, about 1 hour ago there was random artillery shelling near my area. It's called Jabali refugee camp, and there were 15 people who were killed, some of them from the same family. This was the latest attack so far. About 10 minutes ago, they started the bank also close to another. Last night and today, and this second night too, it's mainly about targeting the infrastructure and targeting the civilians. 150 have been killed in the previous 24 hours since midnight last night, and massive destruction to the infrastructure, including the power plant, including banks, including the Ministry of Finance, a lot of other governmental buildings too.
I just wanted to interrupt it. It was a little bit challenging for me to understand every word that he was saying, but he was talking about a refugee camp. I believe he said 15 people were killed at a refugee camp last night or today, and he's talking about certain government buildings that were attacked.
Yeah, that's what's going on.
And this was all from today?
This within 24 hours. Now it's 12:14 p.m. my time, and I'm speaking about events that happened after 12 last night.
And what is the name of the hospital that you're in?
I work at Shifa Hospital. I'm not there now, but tomorrow I will be there.
Okay. And So you live there and you see this every day.
Yeah.
How are the hospitals and the doctors coping with all the injured people?
Well, it's a very difficult situation. You could imagine the situation yesterday, for example, when they targeted a park with about 100 children playing. At one incident, at one time, more than 50 casualties arrived, including 10 children killed and more than 10 others seriously wounded. So it's a very difficult situation to handle and to work at, and especially after 23 days, everyone is exhausted. But being a doctor is all about managing difficult situations, you know.
This is an extreme example of a difficult situation.
Of course.
Is anyone, from anywhere, like, offering to come and help?
Here we have, we can manage, we have enough numbers of surgeons, but it is specialties that we need, for example, cosmetic surgery, and more than that, what we need really is the medical supplies and the electricity. Right now there is more than 90% shortage in power supplies all over Gaza, especially after the power factory was started this morning at dawn. And this in addition to the shortage in power supplies, which has been present for more than 4 months now and increased shortly after the attack. But yeah, we have teams from MSF working with us, and we have other volunteers from Italy and from Norway.
Oh, good.
With the Red Cross.
Okay, well, so do you get to rest, or are you just on call like 24 hours a day?
Do I feel very stressed?
Yeah. Do you get to rest at all?
Correct. Yeah. Well, now we operate a level B plan, which is being divided into 3 teams. Each team will work for 24 hours and the rest for 48. But the problem is, even when you leave the hospital, you stay awake for 24 hours and constantly working and managing injuries. But even when you are at home, there is no rest. There is continuous shelling, either with artillery or with airstrike. I myself have not slept at one time for longer than 3 hours for 23 days now. And that's just me, and I live in a relatively calm area, relatively safe. But other areas, situation is worse. And this applies to all people, not just doctors, not just people who work in the medical field.
So what do you want to say to the people that want to blame Hamas for all of this?
Before you can judge anyone, you have to live and be in our shoes. Here in Gaza, the Israelis have created a situation which benefits them. They have created a status quo in which they get to besiege and impose a blockade on Gaza and deal with it as a separate entity, not give us good living, not give us our rights, and they expect us to stay calm, stay put, and say nothing about it. And they don't like that the people are finally speaking up. This is not about Hamas, this is about the people. This is about 2 million people occupied, the right to their rights, and the right of not just their rights of freedom of speech, of free elections. We're talking about food and water and electricity here. That's the level of rights that we need now. So unless you live in such a situation, you do not have the right to judge people for their decisions and choices they make.
And so, because over here, a lot of Israeli supporters believe that Israel really does want peace and democracy, but you don't believe that's the case, like you just said.
Well, it's not about what I believe, it's about the facts.
Right.
Let's look about the facts in West Bank, for example. In West Bank, there are no armed resistance. And even there is no peaceful resistance. People are just living and taking whatever Israel throws at them, and look at what they have got them. Do they have the free movement? No. Do they have good economy? No. Do they have peace? At least no. They are under constant attack by settlers and by the army. And just last week, and last night, no Palestinian was killed in West Bank, and last week alone, 10 Palestinians were killed in West Bank. So there is no way that we're talking about democratic state here. We're talking about people under occupation. No, it's either here on West Bank or as refugees in diaspora.
Right. The people that were protesting in the West Bank got attacked just for protesting.
Of course, that's what I mean.
And weren't there refugees were taking shelter at in a UN shelter that got hit also, and I believe that they said Israeli shelling was responsible for that.
Yeah, that's what eyewitnesses said, and that's what the UNRWA finally said after they investigated the area.
And so, I mean, what kind of I could imagine, you know, in bombings, the kinds of injuries that people are coming in with. Is it mostly children?
This week has been very bloody for one simple reason. They ordered more than 500,000 population to evacuate their land. Now more than 50% of the small area on which Gaza Strip lies, more than 50% of the land, 55% to be accurate, is a no-go zone. And the people who lived in this area, more than 500,000 people, they were ordered to evacuate. And now these very areas which they evacuated are being targeted, and they are not targeted in a precise way. They are targeted randomly with artillery. And you can imagine how the situation is when artillery targets an area which population has just doubled, despite the fact that Gaza Strip is already one of the most populated areas in the world. So that's what we're dealing with. Random shelling, hitting houses, families coming, most of them between dead or injured, shrapnel, homes, destroyed, flattened over the heads of its residents, drones targeting people in cars, in vehicles, targeting parks like yesterday, where we have seen pictures of children covered in burns up to 90% of their bodies. You can imagine the war literally with all of the meanings to the words.
Can you tell us who Hamas is?
Who what?
Hamas is.
I don't understand the question actually.
Okay, because everyone is calling, Israel is calling Hamas a terrorist organization. Who is Hamas?
It's like the same as another fraction. When people are occupied, they form groups to resist.
Right.
But one group happens to be more populous or larger than other groups. And that's the situation here. But it does not change the fact that people have the right to resist.
Right.
What?
So you would not call Hamas a terrorist organization, right? Is that correct?
Well, the West does, but I believe that most of the people does not. If you take in consideration the Palestinians, the Arab world, the Muslim world, or the people in Asia, Africa, South America, none of them call them terrorists. But we should not just oblige to what the United States say. If the United States says something or some group of terrorists, it does not necessarily have to be.
What do you think of President Obama saying that Israel has the right to defend itself?
Well, I wish he would look the other way. He's almost always just looking in Israel's direction. I wish he would cut some time and look the other way.
It was Dr. Mads Gilbert who I believe sent a message to President Obama inviting him to come there for one day or night, and that if anyone were to see the horror that's going on over there, they would end the occupation immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. If just by looking through the screen, you will see that it's not different from any horror movie, but if you look at yourself, if you look at the facts closely, and that's what all the reporters, for example, if you read the piece by Jon Snow from Channel 4, he wrote beautiful piece about his experience in Gaza. It changes the way you look at things. It changes the perspective. If you just get away from media, from the pressure of the biased media, of course, yeah, that would be great, but I don't think Obama considered it.
And I watched some footage saying that Israel is using the Palestinians to test their weapons on. Have you heard anything like that?
Use Palestinians for what?
For testing out their weapons and their bombs.
For testing, yeah.
Right.
Well, I hear about that too. I have no evidence myself, but I wouldn't say that's a very awkward idea.
And what are you seeing? Is it mostly children, adults that are being injured?
It's families. And families, here we have extended families, and with extended families, most of them would be children and a few adults. But you would see women, elderly, men, children, males and females, everyone. Because when a shell hits a house, it takes down everyone in it.
Right. Can you explain what a shelling is? Is that just bullets?
No, it's artillery.
Artillery. I read in an article and they showed a picture that inside of certain weapons there are small metal darts, like metal splinters, about an inch and a half long. Do you see?
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah, I know it. It's called a fléchette.
And have you seen those kinds of injuries?
I myself have not, but doctors have.
Oh, the doctors have. Yeah, that must not be a pleasant thing to have to deal with over there.
But it's very famous here. It is used very often.
And is that where you're from? Do you live there and you're there all the time? How long have you been there?
At the hospital?
Yeah, in Gaza.
In Gaza, I've been half my life, I'm 25 years, 15 of them was where I lived in Gaza.
And you've been dealing with this for half your life?
Ever since I've been in Gaza, there's violence. In many instances, I've seen people dying in front of me. But this is the most intense experience I ever been through.
And you still want to stay and help the people there?
Oh yeah, of course, that's what being a doctor is all about. And of course, but you have no place without a new home.
Yeah. And do you know Mads Gilbert, the doctor from Norway?
Yeah, I've met him.
Is he at the same hospital as you?
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Is there anything you want to say to the American people?
I want them to take a wider perspective at this. This is not a scenario of two states fighting. This is not a scenario of two people, one of them savages attacking the other democratic people, as is often portrayed on CNN and BBC and the other corporate media. What we deal about is the original population oppressed, occupied by other population, the right of their rights. If you look at it that way, if you just dig enough in history, I'm not go dig deep, I'm just saying have a look, you will see the facts. understand that this is not different from any other people under occupation. People in America have never been under occupation because they have two oceans surrounding them. I hope they will never go in that experience, but just imagine, read some history and just be just to our cause.
What do you want to say to President Obama?
I want to say the same. I want to say to him that as long as you are standing with Israel and ignoring the rights of people, the people will not take it and stay silent. This will not work, either today or 10 years or 100 years later. This will not work. The only way that to achieve peace is through giving people their rights. When people get their rights, peace will be achieved. Justice before peace. Before peace based on injustice will not be stable.
And why do you think this is happening? What is the end result of Israel? To just take the land, to just have power?
They want the land, they want power, they want to expand, they want to expel whatever Arabs they can. Of course, that's been going on for 66 years now.
Right, 66 years. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. BELAL DaBOUR, I want to applaud you for what you do, and I want to thank you for helping the people of Gaza. And is there anything else that you would like to add?
Thank you for your work. I understand you were requesting. I know the struggle you've been through, and I appreciate it very much. Me and the people of Gaza and people of Palestine appreciate your work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we tried to go to Gaza, but we didn't get to go in. Most of the people never even made it into Egypt at all.
Well, hopefully next time you will be able to.
I hope to shake your hand someday.
Yeah, I hope so. Maybe not very far day.
Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, we're back from this quick break. Yeah, I understand it was a little bit hard to understand Dr. BELAL DaBOUR. I had a bit of a challenging time. I was able to make out, he was talking about refugee camps, Zionist media, 50% of Gaza has been evacuated. The interview will be on my YouTube channel. You can always listen to it again. So right now I wanted to just play the short interview that I did with Norman Finkelstein today at 42nd and 2nd Avenue before their civil disobedience action. It's actually in two pieces. I had to kind of pause the interview until this really loud fire truck finished going by. So here is the first part, which is just about 2 minutes. Norman Finkelstein. We're standing on 2nd Avenue, right off 42nd Street. The plan was to do some civil disobedience on behalf of the people in Palestine. Can you tell us what you had in mind? You said you were not an organizer, but...
No, I'm not an organizer, and I don't like to pretend things I'm not. However, I did feel yesterday that I had reached a point where I could either become inured to the death, I can go mad from the death. I'm just going to get up and do something. And I decided to get up and do something.
Yeah, sorry about the noise. He's saying I could either go mad about the death or I can get up and do something.
I want to do individual actions. I believe in collective action. And so I decided to just post it on the web, see if we can get critical mass, and then just do it.
When did you get the idea?
thinking about it for a very long time, the last 20 days. And I went to several demonstrations. The demonstrations I attended did not have a civil disobedience component. So I decided to just take the initiative myself.
So he's saying that he went to protests, but the protest that he went to didn't have a civil disobedience component. And here comes a loud fire truck that gets caught in the traffic. And there's 20 seconds left of this video, and then I'll end it and play the second part.
When the fire truck passes, what were you planning on doing today?
I'd rather not say.
Okay, that's the end of part one.
Okay, we're just resuming after the fire truck was going by. So you believe that, you know, right, just having protests is not going to do anything.
I don't think that demonstrations are rising to the occasion. Something horrible is happening here, and I feel that just walking a few miles and going home seems not to be commensurate with what the horror requires.
Right. Do you have anything else to add? No. Do you want to say anything to American people?
Well, what I would say is last night when I was trying to sleep, I suddenly was gripped with a sudden doubt because what's happening in Gaza could not have happened without Obama. Every day when Obama says, and he repeats it, Israel has the right to defend itself. Each day he says that, he's just giving a green light for Israel to continue its terror bombing of Palestine. So, he's the enabler.
Right. Why does he say the opposite of what is obvious to so many other people? Who is he working for?
I don't want to really speculate that much because it takes so much time and energy to figure it out. The bottom line is, whatever his motive, whoever he's working for, the bottom line is, he is the enabler of this massacre in Gaza. He is not an enabler. He is the enabler of massacre in Gaza. And when it comes to allocating culpability for the massive crimes that are now being committed, behind second only to Netanyahu and the Israeli government itself, second only to those criminals, is President Obama.
Thank you so much. Okay, we just
So that was the second part. New York City is extremely noisy. So it's very challenging interviewing people there. So right now we're going to go to, Pam Bailey. Okay, we're back with the little bit of technical difficulty, but we have Pam Bailey, who is at a protest in front of John Kelly's house, the Secretary of State. Is that?
That's correct, yes.
So where are you exactly?
We're actually in the Georgetown neighborhood of D.C. where John Kerry has his private residence. And we have, we're collected outside his house right now, and people are giving testimony, including myself, about the situation in Gaza and what we are calling on the U.S. government to do.
And what are you what are you calling on the U.S. government to do?
Well, the key is a ceasefire, yes, but a ceasefire with a guaranteed path to the end of the blockade. And that's actually a really clear message that a lot of Americans don't understand. They see the carnage going on right now in Gaza, which we all want to end, and they don't understand why the people of Gaza and the resistance movement. I say the resistance movement and not Hamas because right now it's the resistance. It's not any party. It's the resistance, and the people support them wholeheartedly. Why don't they just give up? Why don't they just surrender? And the answer is because despite the horror there right now and the deaths and the destruction, they actually consider the life they had before to be a living death. And they just don't want to go back to it. They're done. They're backed up against the wall, and they say this is the time. They're prepared to pay whatever price it takes to get the international community to do what it takes to end the blockade that has basically made them prisoners for, really more than 40 years, but especially intense the last 7. So it has to be a ceasefire with a guarantee backed by international force, a path to the end of the blockade.
Right. So then Israel just wants to end the siege, but then just keep them living like the way that it was before.
No, and that's not acceptable. And no one, I guarantee you, anybody who has to, I lived there for 3 years, and anybody who lives there, I would say take any American and put them there, or any European, any Westerner, put them there for a couple of months, and they would be quickly singing the same tune. And a lot of people probably would choose violence to resist if they were undergoing what they've been undergoing. No one would consider that okay, and yet that's the story, that's the context that's usually missing in the media. All you hear about is the rockets and the attacks, but it's without the context of a 24/7 occupation that has been stifling their ability to live for years now.
When they had a pro-Israel protest last Sunday in Times Square to counter all of the pro-Palestinian protests that were going on that entire week, people were holding up signs saying Israel wants peace. Israel wants democracy.
But they want peace on their own terms is the problem. When they say peace, they mean a quiescent people. They mean a people who just basically lays down and takes whatever conditions they impose. That's what they mean by peace. Quiet for them. That's what they mean by peace. And to truly have peace, justice has to prevail. Israel will never have peace. If you look throughout history, when you have an oppressed people, you may crush them at a particular point in time, but they will keep rising up. You will not have peace until there's justice for both sides.
So it actually doesn't even fit the true definition of peace. What Israel is calling peace. It's right. They're defining peace in their own way, which is not even the true definition of it.
No, that's right. People have sort of lost that. Yeah, to them it means quiet for Israel. And I truly believe when people ask what Israel wants, I'm actually not quite sure what their end game really is. I think it's to have the status quo, but to continue to marginalize the Palestinians more and more and more. And you see that it's spread to the West Bank now. Part of the problem is that, Mahmoud Abbas, the U.S. and Israel have made him sort of captive in that, all the money that they rely on to operate, they just threaten to pull it at any moment if he doesn't do their bidding. And I think what you see now is the people feel like they've had to go to the streets, even in the West Bank, to demand what are basic rights.
Right. What is the action like where you are? What is the turnout?
Well, it's not a large group, but this is actually rather impromptu. The actual really big march, I think you'll see, is on Saturday in D.C. There's been several weeks of planning for that. This was a little bit impromptu, but you have a group of, say, about 100, I would say, in front of his house, where actually it's partially in support of him, actually, because finally, Kerry has been saying that, yes, he's included in his talking points that there needs to be a solution for the Palestinians, an end to the situation that they've been in. And, of course, that's the reason why Netanyahu has refused the latest offers, and he's keeping scorn on Kerry for even suggesting that. And what our message is, that was too late, but now that you're doing it, you have to keep on and keep pressing that message. I think the other thing we're saying is that they need to be talking to Hamas. This is ridiculous. When you mediate, whoever the mediator is, that means talking to both sides.
Right.
And Hamas right now represents the resistance. So one reason why there's been so little progress is because nobody wants to talk to the people directly, they go through proxies. So you really need to be, there needs to be some direct dialogue.
What do you say to the people that consider Hamas to be a terrorist organization?
Well, my response to that is right now one message is it's really not about Hamas anymore. It's a united resistance that the people totally support. So for this what's going on right now, put Hamas aside. This is what the people want. And also, I guess if you want a little bit of history here, we forced Hamas to take a more violent approach. You go back in time to when Hamas participated in elections, which was 2006. There's moderate elements of Hamas. Just like there's different factions of every political party, there's a moderate faction of Hamas. I knew these people. They're very reasonable. They ran for office. We should have engaged with them. Instead, what happened is that as soon as they won the election, Israel basically imprisoned all of the Hamas members who were elected to office. These are the moderate members that we could have dealt with. They were put in prison. A lot of them are still there. And then what happened was there was this huge Abbas was ordered not to work with them. So basically, what we've shown the Hamas and the different factions is that it doesn't pay to try moderate work. It doesn't pay to engage in politics. That it won't matter. So if there's more extreme elements now, it's really in large part our fault.
That seems to be a bit of a common theme, because even someone like Bradley Manning and Edward Snowden said the same thing. They tried going through the proper channels, and it doesn't work.
Right, exactly. It's like, and also, the other thing is there's an excellent book written about Black Americans and mass incarceration of Black Americans called The New Jim Crow, and she made a comment that you can't put people in a pressure cooker environment. She was talking about the ghettos, but it could be this Gaza. You can't put people in an environment like that and expose them to these inhumane conditions for day in, day out, year after year, and then heap punishment on them when they don't act as model citizens. There's a cause and effect here.
Right.
What do you think people are going to? I mean, what do you think it does to people to grow up in those conditions? You don't expect them to resist, violently in some cases.
I call it, there's a war against reality, like there's a war against physics. I mean, like the powers that be are so arrogant, they think they're going to dictate natural law. Exactly. And like when people have normal reactions, I'm just trying, like recently, the Eric Garner case, they put the guy in a chokehold, and it's like, and the guy dies. It's like, but it wasn't their chokehold that created it. I mean, that's, what they want to constantly challenge the laws of physics, like nature is wrong.
It's like you take a sharp stick and you keep poking at something and, poking it until it finally reacts, and then you blame it. I mean, it's absurd.
Right.
I mean, every single, our own American Revolution certainly wasn't nonviolent, and every single resistance movement throughout history, there's always some people who feel like that's their only recourse. It's a natural. It's not an exception. It's the norm. And the only way to deal with it is to look at the root cause of what's causing it to begin with.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, there's also a war against health. And to me, like, this is all part of the war against health. We want to make healthy, I mean, I don't know, it used to be if you go to a doctor and you're getting like a checkup, the doctor has you cross your legs and he hits your knee, to check your reflexes. And if your knee and your leg jerks up, that's considered a normal reflex, Like
right.
Today, it's like the opposite. If you have a normal reaction to something, they want to call you a terrorist today.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the story that's in the media right now. Most of the media, there actually has been some change. I think that there are more media voices telling the real story, but they're still a minority. You know, and they still want to report this rocket attack, and then this happens, and not give a broader context. Or, you know, although I think people are increasingly horrified. I mean, I think Israel has crossed a threshold where people see the horror, but my fear is that the push is just for a ceasefire, and ignoring the fact that if you look at the pattern over time, we will end up right back in the same place if they don't finally deal with the root cause. This happened in 2008, 2009. It happened in 2012 on a little bit smaller scale. And if we don't get something more than ceasefire now, we'll end up right back here again, you know, in a year or two.
Why do you believe the United States funds Israel?
Well, I think it's a complex number of factors. You know, I actually personally think though that some of them don't exist anymore. I mean, like I personally do not think that the Jewish lobby, the Zionist lobby, I should say it that way because there's a lot of Jewish people who don't support this. The Zionist lobby is not as strong as it used to be, in my opinion, and yet politicians are just sort of knee-jerk, afraid to do anything against them. But it's clearly one of the reasons why. And there's also a belief that, you know, Israel protects her strategic interests in the region. But, you know, General Petraeus, even when he was in the military, before he left the military, he has testified to Congress that actually it hurts our interests because so many people see the U.S. as complicit with something that's clearly against human rights and international law. So I think even that presumption, I mean, there's been a long-held belief that Israel affects their values and helps to stabilize the Middle East. But, you know, I think that's no longer the case either. So a lot of these tenets that our policy is based on are just weak and crumbling, and yet the practice hasn't changed.
So can you talk about when you were in Gaza? You were there for 3 years. Why were you there? And when?
Well, you know, I had been to the West Bank twice and had gotten, it was really, that's what exposed me to the Palestinian cause. And I had actually made a commitment to a family I met there in Tel Karim that when I went back home, I was going to do something about it. And then in March of 2009, there was an UNRWA delegation going into Gaza right after that big war. And I was invited to go with a group of women for International Women's Day. And so I went into my third trip into the Palestinian territories. And I saw such great need there, and I knew I wanted to help, and I just thought that, you know, I need to learn more in a deeper way than just going in, flying out for a week, which is what most internationals do. So it was at a time when I had been wanting to leave my corporate life anyway. So by the end of that year, I returned, and what I did when I was there as an individual. I taught English. I reported for a news service. This is when the Arab Spring was just starting, so I started teaching youth how to use social media to become citizen journalists so that it wasn't me talking for them, but they could get their own voices amplified. And I also did some human shield work. I went with fishermen out into the harbor. The thought was that if an international was with them, there'd be less likelihood of being shot. I went with farmers for the same reason into the buffer zone. And it was all that kind of work. It really gave me a deep understanding of the issue, a deep appreciation for the people and the culture. But then I returned home mainly because if you ask most Palestinians, you know, how you can help, they would say, change your government. And so the biggest reason why I came back was because it was their message, say, okay, now go back and work in the belly of the beast. And that's what I've been trying to do ever since. But it's, to tell you what, the U.S. is a very frustrating place to be because, you know, I think Europe is a little different, you know, but the U.S. is a tough government to change. But we're trying our best.
What have you been working on since you came back from Gaza?
Well, so I do a lot of writing. I mean, I have an actual regular job now, too, just so I can, you know, pay my living expenses. So I do a lot of writing. I'm still very much in touch with everybody in Gaza, so I regularly write op-eds trying to bring different issues to light. Like I wrote one, for instance, explaining the Palestinian rockets, because everybody uses that as an excuse to not be in favor of the Palestinians. So I took it on directly. I do a lot of writing, do a lot of activism in terms of trying to visit Congress people and participating in actions like the one we're doing today. We're also doing BDS, boycotts, divestments, and sanctions. In D.C., for instance, we have a monthly action against a group of stores that sell SodaStream. SodaStream is a product that's made in an illegal settlement in the West Bank. So we're borrowing tactics used in South Africa. So we're doing all of the activities, knowing that if we keep at it over time, we'll see support erode.
Yeah. What do you want to say to the people, or like, what do you want them? I guess like if there's one thing that you want them to know, more than anything else.
The Palestinians are humans, people just really like you and I. They want the same things. So if anybody is not familiar yet with this issue, they need to question what they see in the news, realize that there's another side to the story that they're hearing. Please learn more about it. Please do research, and once they do, they really need to speak out. I really do believe that the public opinion tide is slowly starting to change. The best thing that they can do is to speak out and educate others. Write as the editor, call their congressman, but the main thing is just learn more.
Right. What do you think about going, or trying to go to Gaza now to help? Because
I'm going to actually. You couldn't get in now. Egypt is turning away even most medical convoys. But once this is over, which I hope is soon, I plan to go back. I don't. Unfortunately, Egypt is almost as bad as Israel right now in that respect. So it's a little bit unpredictable about whether or not who will be able to get in when. But that's my intention. They will need a lot of help, a lot of money to rebuild after this. When I look at the pictures now, all the rebuilding, and when I first went in March 2009, it was right after that big attack, that big assault, and it was devastated. The pictures I see now seem worse. I mean, it actually really seems worse. Right. And all the rebuilding they had done so much rebuilding, is completely gone. And they're going to need major, major financial help to rebuild. So that's the other thing. People really should identify the charity of their choice, It's unfortunate, too. I usually don't really like, I hate to see the people dependent on international NGOs. They need to be able to do it themselves, but there's going to be such a huge crisis that it would be necessary. There's a couple of NGOs that do work in Gaza, and you can donate money so they can start the rebuilding process.
And so, as far as going back there, you don't believe that that'll be happening for another few months?
I'm gonna try in November. I'm sort of monitoring the situation right now. It'll sort of depend on Egypt. It's very difficult to go in the best of circumstances. There's really only two ways to get in. Getting in through Israel is very difficult. So it really usually is through Egypt. Under Sisi, the new leader of Egypt, it's become probably the most difficult ever. But you either can get in as a reporter if you actually have press credentials, or if you don't, you have to get a letter of invitation. You can't just go because you want to go. That doesn't exist. You can't just show up and try to get in. You have to get advance permission, which means you have to have a letter from an organization saying what you're going to do there. You have to go to the Egyptian embassy, and then they put it through internal security. And if they say yes, then you can go. But if the border is shut, which it could be for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you still can't get in. Right. And then let's say the border opens, and you even have permission to get in. Once you get to the border, those policemen there they operate like they're their own agents. They could say no. It's like this obstacle course that I'm definitely going to try it again.
You can even get in when they open the border, but then they close it and you can't get out.
Yes, yes, that's true. If it's closed, it's closed. You know, that's true. You're right. And so that's the other problem. That for anybody who has regular jobs, you know, it's difficult. I mean, like, because then you could not get out for, you know, weeks. I had a situation when I was in Gaza towards the end when I was getting ready to leave. I had a situation where my passport, my whole purse went missing. My passport was in it. And the U.S. is one of 2 countries in the world, along with the Czech Republic, that requires an in-person interview in order to replace a lost or stolen passport. And the problem is the U.S. will not come into Gaza. So I couldn't get out, and they would not come in. And it was ridiculous. So it took me 5 months of extra time to navigate that process to finally be able to leave. So, yeah, it's a real problem for anybody who actually has a day job to go back to. Most people can't afford to spend weeks or, you know, waiting around trying to get in. So it does make it difficult for anybody to visit.
Is there anything else you would like to say, Pam Bailey, before we end? Where can people find your writing?
Well, so you can either, I mean, I do a blog, although instead of blogging there, I mostly write for other publications now. Monda Weiss is one. So if you go Pam Bailey and Monda Weiss. I've written for Al Jazeera English and Truth Out. But I do have a blog called Pam in Progress on Tumblr. It's just that I've been mostly writing for other services because I had a larger audience recently. So Monda Weiss is a great, by the way, I would really recommend for anybody who hasn't been to Monda Weiss if you really want to learn more.
Yeah, can you spell that?
Yeah, M as in money, ONDOWEISS. And it's basically a community blog for people who are really interested in Middle Eastern issues, mostly Palestinian. And you have a really nice diversity of opinion and dialogue and debate going on there.
Pam Bailey, thank you very much for your report down there at the small gathering at John Kerry's house.
Thank you very much for having me.
And keep up the good fight.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Government, freedom, law, education, health, free energy, money, debt. Awake Radio, deconstructing the dream world, one lie at a time.
You didn't think it was going to be that easy, did you? You know, for a second there, yeah, I kind of did.
Okay, we are live on Organic News here on Awake Radio. I am Kat Waters on Facebook, April Waters, Watters on YouTube, and we have with us Travis Morales from Stop Mass Incarceration Network, who was at the rally for Eric Garner on Saturday at 204 Bay Street, where Eric Garner died. And why were you there, Travis?
I was there because it was an outrage. It's still an outrage that the fact that Eric Garner, I mean, they may have not had a rope like back in the day, hanging from a tree, but this was a lynching, NYPD style. I mean, the whole world sees this video where they come up on Eric, who's just standing there
Yeah.
Everybody's saying he broke up a fight. And the police come and as they come up on him, Eric goes, every time you see me, you want to mess with me. I'm tired of this.
Yeah.
And then they come up on him because he's not being the subservient, tell me what to do, down on his knees black man. He's questioning why they're harassing him. And the last thing you hear him say before they put him in a chokehold is, it stops today. It stops today. And then you see them take him down on the ground, choking him. And his last words are, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And like I said, this was a lynching, NYPD style.
Yeah.
That's why I was there. This has to stop.
Yeah, it really is, like how dare you like not bow to their authority kind of attitude that they have. I mean, what did the guy do? Why were they harassing him? What for?
I mean, they were claiming he was selling Lucy's, selling individual cigarettes. And it's like, first of all, even if he was, so what? I mean, this system has created a situation where it's impossible for millions of black and Latino people to be able to live, to be able to get a job. There's no jobs. There's no way for people to survive. And then when people do something like selling Lucy's or singing in the subway or trying to take a nap on the subway because they're so tired, they get arrested. It's an outrage. And people should be outraged, and they should be outraged that this cop who murdered Eric is still walking around free. He's still walking around free.
Yeah. Aren't they making homelessness illegal? I mean,
basically that's what they're doing. I mean, they've created a situation where millions of jobs have left for black people and Latino people. There's no jobs left. All the industry is gone. You look around New York City, all these areas that are being gentrified used to be full of factories where people could at least get a paycheck and a job. All those are gone. And then they're making it illegal for people to try and whatever thing they're trying to do, whether it's singing on the subway or selling loose cigarettes. I mean, since de Blasio came into office, the arrest of subway panhandlers and musicians has increased 300%. Okay, 300%. Under de Blasio, black people, Latino people, and white people all smoke marijuana about the same rate, same percentage of people. But 85% of those arrested for possession of marijuana are black or Latino. I mean, this is what's going on.
Right. It's I went to a few meetings from an organization called PROP, Police Reform Organizing Project, about the officers. A lot of officers coming out against the quota system. I mean, that's kind of like, how does NYPD, a police department, have a quota? I mean, you can't, so exactly. So you have to manufacture crime?
Right. It's all part of the criminalization of black and Latino people.
I mean, it's like, it's ridiculous. Like, you can't have a for-profit police department. I mean, they're trying to make the police department, which is supposed to be a government agency, like a corporation, for-profit corporation.
But there's also a big part of it is there's been a conscious policy going back 40 years, starting with Nixon, but taking a leap under Reagan, a conscious policy to criminalize black people and increasingly Latino people. Nixon made this statement, which I'm going to mess up here, but he basically said to his henchman, H.R. Haldeman, we all know what the problem is, the blacks. The thing is to do it in such a way that it's not obvious. And what he was talking about was starting the war on drugs, which they did start, and it took a whole leap under Reagan. And as Michelle Alexander documents in her book, The New Jim Crow, this is a policy and a strategy that's been developed to run huge sections of black and increasingly Latino people through the prison system, destroying the lives of tens of millions of people, making it impossible for people to survive once they get out because they're discriminated against. They can't get a job. They can't get loans. They can't get licenses for various professions. All of this at a time when two things that they're looking at. One is that coming off the 60s, the tremendous upheaval, the revolutionary risings among particularly black people in this country, this system was determined that black people would never, ever be in a position to rise up against their horrific oppression. And two, the fact that all these jobs, all these economic changes have left. So there is no future, good future, for black people and increasingly Latinos. And so their answer was mass incarceration, tying people up in the injustice system. And Eric Garner was a direct victim of mass incarceration. Why? Because the whole attitude that's been developed, the public opinion that they've tried to create, the attitude among the police is that every black person and every Latino is a criminal and deserves to be treated like a criminal. And they're guilty until proven innocent if they can live to prove that they were innocent.
Whose idea was stop and frisk? Who implemented that?
I believe that was started under Bratton.
I mean,
and that was supposed to be a reform to take the place of the street crime units that when they killed Amadou Diallo. So the stop and frisk was actually supposed to be a reform, and we saw what kind of reform that was. Hundreds of thousands, millions of people over the past years who've been stopped and frisked and given a record. And I think that looking at Eric Garner, what happened to him concentrates how this system is treating black people, for whom it has no future other than selling drugs, prison. And this has to stop. And that's why many of us have come together and planning an October month of resistance to mass incarceration, police terror, repression, and the criminalization of a generation, because all of this has to stop. This mass incarceration, the fact that their police are running rampant, killing our children and our people, the fact that they're treating whole sections of people like criminals from the time they were born. I mean, the Bureau of Justice Statistics came out not that long ago with a statistic that get this, a black male born in the year 2001 has a 32.2% chance of going to prison. A third.
Yeah.
You got to ask, what kind of system is this, where people are massively being sent to prison? 5% of the world's population in this country, 25% of the world's prisoners, over 60% black or Latino, something like 33% of black males between the ages of 20 and 29 are in prison, in jail, on parole, or on probation. That's why we call it a slow genocide.
Well,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, which really kind of took me aback quite a bit, the Correction Corporation of America.
Concentration camps of America, we call it.
You know, I mean, like that's pretty shocking to understand the fact that, I mean, and it has a stock. You can invest in a stock for, you know, this Correction Corporation of America, which, you know, right, takes over and runs prisons, and it's, you know, people making money off of other people being incarcerated.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, it's kind of simple because, you know, I follow the Federal Reserve and all that stuff, and I'm aware that you know, money is actually a debt note and it doesn't have value at all. And so it only makes sense to me that if money is debt, that in order to have it, you're going to have to, you know, go into like a mental deficiency, you know, like making and profiting off of the misery of others,
right,
in order to have it. I mean, it's not complicated.
And there's a lot of misery that this system is spreading around to people right now.
And so talk about October being the month of resistance for mass incarceration. Like, what are the plans?
I mean, the plans are, and in fact, there's going to be a launch here in New York in the Northeast this Saturday at 12 noon at St. Paul and St. Andrew's United Methodist Church. And people should go to the website, stopmassincarceration.net, stopmassincarceration.net, or they can email stopmassincarceration@gmail.com. But there's going to be this launch of bringing together, and we're calling on people to come in and join with Baez, the mother of Anthony Baez, who was choked to death by the NYPD cop 20 years ago. Carl Dix of the Revolutionary Communist Party, one of the co-founders, along with Cornel West, of the Stop Mass Incarceration Network. Nicholas Haywood Sr., the father of Nicholas Haywood Jr., a 13-year-old who was murdered by housing authority cops. Cecily McMillan, who many of your listeners probably know, spent almost 60 days in jail after she was sexually assaulted by the NYPD down at Zuccotti Park.
Right.
The Reverend Stephen Phelps, the former interim head minister at Riverside Church. Juanita Young, whose son Malcolm Ferguson was murdered by the NYPD. Coming together this Saturday to make plans for how we can have a month of resistance in October to impact millions of people, change the way millions of people look at mass incarceration, and bring many of them into a movement to stop it. We need tens of thousands of people out in October in various kinds of activities, opening weekend of October with sermons in churches, mosques, and synagogues, exposing the horrors of mass incarcerations. Events on major college campuses, symposiums, exposing and also the horrors of mass incarceration, but also bringing people who've been the targets of it to speak their mind and to expose what their lives are like. Cultural events, spoken word, music around this theme of stopping mass incarceration.
Can you
go ahead?
Yeah, say the where it's going to be again. So it's this Saturday.
This Saturday,
the 2nd,
12 noon,
August 2nd at noon,
at St. Paul and St. Andrew United Methodist Church. St. Paul and St. Andrew United Methodist Church, which is 263 West 86th Street. You take the number 1 train to the 86th Street stop, and it's just west of Broadway.
Right. I believe, does the 2 or 3 stop there? No, it's just the number 1. Right.
Just the number 1.
Right.
Yeah. And in particular, one of the things we are going to be talking about is October 22nd. It's going to be the 19th annual October 22nd National Day of Protest to stop police brutality, repression, and the criminalization of a generation. And there needs to be massive outpourings. There needs to be thousands and thousands, and we're going for thousands and thousands of people here in New York coming out to Union Square, marching up to Times Square. We need walkouts from the high schools, breakouts from the high schools. We need thousands of the youth coming out. Marking a day as part of a month that can't be ignored, that can't be swept under the rug, that can't be hidden. When it becomes clear that thousands and thousands are willing to stand up and speak out today and to awaken and rally forth millions, that October marks the beginning of the end of mass incarceration in this country.
Yeah, we really do need some civil disobedience instead of just protesting. The cops, they set up the little, like portable jail, where you're
right.
All the, activists are in this like playpen thing. Like today, for instance, Norman Finkelstein and a couple of hundred people came out to do civil disobedience in solidarity with the people of Palestine up by 42nd and 2nd Avenue. And, I would say like 25 or so people were arrested for laying in the crosswalk at the 43rd and 2nd Avenue.
Uh-huh.
Including Norman Finkelstein. They all just kind of like laid in the crosswalk and completely blocked the traffic. It had to be diverted up to Lexington Avenue, up to 3rd Avenue. And I think they were really just given something minor and detained for 4 hours. But, these are the things that it's people have to understand what their rights are. They don't understand that when you do not exercise your rights, it is getting lost. And then when you have lost it and you try to use it again, guess what? The system is not going to make it that easy for you to, to have it back. Yeah,
and this is the thing. Everybody who sees the outrages of mass incarceration, police terror, repression, and the criminalization of a generation, who sees the outrage as a part of that or all of that, you need to be part of this month of resistance. You need to come on Saturday and get involved, be part of making the plans to have this month of resistance. And everybody whose eyes we can open, we can win to see these outrages, needs to be part of this. We need a political situation where thousands of people in October are saying, no, this is not going to happen. You are not going to continue doing this. This is a slow genocide that they're making it increasingly impossible for people to live. As I said, they have 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's prisoners, 60%, over 60% black or Latino, where it's becoming increasingly impossible for people to survive and thrive, which is a definition of genocide. This is what they're doing, and this must stop, and people need to follow through. If you are troubled by the fact that such a huge section of people are targeted for mass incarceration and criminalization, you need to follow through on your convictions and be part of this month from whatever perspective you're coming from. I mean, I myself, I'm a supporter of the Revolutionary Communist Party, and I'm going to say straight up, it's going to take revolution, nothing less. These horrors of the oppression of black people, the endless wars around the world, the horrific treatment of women where they're trying to take away the right of abortion and then birth control. This is all built into the system, and it's going to take a revolution to get rid of it. And I'm seeking, and I think it's important that all of us, from whatever perspective, however we see the problem and the solution, we need to be working together to stop mass incarceration and be part of this month of October.
I believe also for those that live on Staten Island that they're also having an action this Saturday on Staten Island for Eric Garner.
Right. And you know, there's a lot being said to try and trip people up, to try and diffuse the anger. And as you know, you're out there Saturday. People are mad. People are angry. People are fed up. People are looking at this and going, they're getting away with it again, and I'm not going to let it happen. And we have to cut through the lies. How are we going to stop this? They're talking about, Bratton's talking about more training. They don't need more training. They're trained quite well enough to harass us, to beat us, to shoot us, and to choke us. They do a damn good job already of killing our people. They don't need better training.
Right.
They're telling us, you know, we're going to get it with a black president, and now we got a mayor who's going to listen to our concerns. Been there, done that. The same has continued. Or we should put our faith in the Justice Department. Well, let's be clear. This is the same Justice Department that presides over this whole system of mass incarceration, that presides over the criminalization of black people and Latino people. That's right now, you know, they're trying to figure out how to round up these tens of thousands of children on the border who are fleeing violence and starvation, to deport them back to the horrific conditions from which they fled. No, it's going to take the people themselves,
right,
fighting back, going up against these pigs politically and the whole murderous system whose laws and way of life they enforce, and demanding justice.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to have to do. And again, from my perspective, it's got to be part of something bigger, because we really do need a revolution, a real revolution, a total revolution, which actually defeats and dismantles this system and its tools of violent repression and builds a whole new, better society. But again, whatever your perspective, however you're looking at this, if you watch that video and you're sickened, you're angry, you can't stand the fact that this pig who murdered Eric Garner, you know, you see that little smirk on his face when he was walking away, the little wave. And you have to think about this. Why did he not care? Why did he not care that he was being filmed? Because all the other cops were standing around. They did nothing to stop him from killing Eric Garner.
That's what you know, really was pretty disturbing. It was hard for me to watch, you know, the whole altercation part of the video, so I kind of skipped watching that whole thing. But then afterwards, it's a good 7 minutes of Eric Garner face down on the sidewalk, you know, unconscious, not being responsive at all, his hands cuffed behind his back. And actually, no, he wasn't face down. He was on his side.
Yeah.
While, like one cop is kind of, holding like his shoulder and balancing him on his, I think it was his right shoulder. And then, EMS kind of shows up, I think, at maybe the 5-minute mark of this.
And does nothing.
And, basically just, feels his neck. I mean, this guy was unresponsive.
Yes.
I worked for EMS. I worked for the fire department, EMS, from 94 to 2000. And and I won't get into it, but they didn't even put him on oxygen, for God's sake.
I know, and this is the thing. It was like another black man dying, and they don't care. And this is the thing, that cop who killed him, he acted like no big deal if I'm getting filmed. Why?
Right.
Because he knows nothing was going to happen to him. He was doing it as if this is normal operating procedure, which it is, to brutalize and murder our people.
Yeah.
That's what he thought, and that's why he thought he could be filmed and get away with it. And if that sickened you, all those of you listening, then you need to be part of this month of resistance to mass incarceration, police terror, repression, and the criminalization of a generation. You need to come to this meeting, this launch, on Saturday, 12 noon, at the St. Paul and St. Andrew United Methodist Church, 263 West 86th Street. And I urge people to go to stopmassincarcerationnetwork.net, stopmassincarcerationnetwork.net, and check this out, or to get a hold of us at stopmassincarceration@gmail.com. But you need to be part of this. You need to be part of stopping these outrages, this nightmare, because that's what it is for millions of people in this country.
Yeah, people got to get angry. There's no question about it. It's time to get angry.
And this is the thing. A lot of people are angry, and we got to organize that anger.
Right.
In a way that builds determined resistance in a myriad of ways, from sermons in the churches to the young people out who are the targets of all this, the youth from Harlem who've been the targets of these raids, who are the targets of the police beatings and the harassment and the killings, coming out on October 22nd, the National Day of Protest, to cultural expressions. We're talking about running a major ad in the New York Times of this call that's been signed by all these different people like Cephas, Uncle Bobby Johnson, the uncle of Oscar Grant, people like Noam Chomsky, Michelle Alexander, Iris Baez, Father Luis Barrios here in town, the actor Peter Coyote, but all kinds of people publishing that in the New York Times as a major statement that this must stop. And I urge people to go online to stopmassincarceration.net to sign this statement, and very importantly to donate money, because as my brother Carl Dick says, freedom ain't free.
Yeah.
That it's going to take tens of thousands of dollars to reach the millions of people in the greater New York area with this whole month of resistance.
Right, like people need to channel their money towards good and
Yes.
and funnel it away from it being used for destruction.
Exactly. And if you were disturbed by all of this, you can't stand it, this is an opportunity for you to do something that can make a big, big difference. Because part of it is we got to change a lot of people's thinking. People got to understand that when someone's in prison, because people, automatically they've been taught to think that if someone's in prison, they must have done something wrong. It's their own fault.
Right. The system never gets challenged. Exactly. Like, let's start pointing the finger in the other direction. I mean, the people running things are human beings. They're not infallible gods. We have to stop making these people that hold these positions God. They are not God. They deserve to be questioned and critiqued, just like the rest of us.
And this month of resistance is a big way for people to challenge them and say, this has to stop. We want to focus international attention and national attention on the fact that here's this country that goes all over the world for criticizing other governments for human rights violations when in its own country it's targeted black and Latino youth for a future of prison, parole, probation, mass incarceration, for whom they have no future other than prison, death, or drugs. We need to call this country out for what it's doing and build resistance to stop it.
Thank you, Travis Morales, Stop Incarceration Network.
Stop Mass Incarceration Network.
Okay, so I'll see you on Saturday.
I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Anytime. Okay, we're here live with Jose LaSalle, who's been on the show before from, say the name of your organization.
Yeah, well, I have CopWatch Patrol Units, which is CPU, and also the Stop and Frisk Freedom Fighters.
I'm sorry, what was the last one? Stop?
Oh, the Stop and Frisk Freedom Fighters.
Oh, Stop and Frisk. Okay. Yeah, it's sometimes on the radio we have to like enunciate, because it can be a little bit challenging for people to hear. So we want to make sure that they get each letter. So you were on Staten Island on Saturday for this rally for Eric Garner. There's been many rallies, for Eric Garner. This one was, I don't know, 5 or so. And this one took place the first time that I ever went to the site 204 Bay Street, where it all went down.
Right.
So what have you been working on as far as, and you were also at the funeral. Talk about the funeral.
I mean, it's very sad because you see the Garner family there for mourning their son, and not only that, you actually start seeing other families that lost their kid because of police violence, because the police murdered them, and families like the Ramali Graham, who Ramali was an 18-year-old and in February 2nd got killed in his own house. The police broke in and killed him in his own house in front of his 6-year-old brother and his his elderly grandmother. Then you also have Chantel Davis, who was killed in East Flatbush in Brooklyn. And you had many other families, especially the family like, you had Iris Byers come there, which is Anthony Byers. Hello?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, which is Anthony Byers' mother. And Anthony Byers was killed in 1994 underneath, under Bill Bratton as being commissioner as well. And he was murdered by Lavotis, who also put a chokehold on him and caused him it caused him to die. So that's the reason why the chokehold was banned, because of what happened to Anthony Byers. So seeing her there, Iris Byers, it was like seeing these families' wounds being open again. And it was very sad and touching.
And so, right, officers are not supposed to be using any kind of a chokehold. I mean, especially on someone who was not even a threat to them at all.
Right. I mean, he was in a surrender position when they jumped on him. He did not try to swing at them. He did push back a little bit, but, he was not being to the point where they felt like they needed to use that type of force. And the patrol guys state clearly, it states in 203-11 in the patrol guys, that chokeholds will not, and when they say not, they have all that capitalized, N-O-T capitalized, will not be used. So it's something that violates the procedures and protocols of the police department, but we also got to look at it that outside of that, he actually murdered this man. And not only that, I mean, it's like seeing an execution taking place right there in front of your face, because you hear somebody screaming, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe," 11 times before he actually must have just, blacked out, and that was it for him. That's when he was beginning to die. So it's very sad to see something like that from those that's supposed to be out there to serve and protect us.
This whole thing with Eric Garner is just really, it's so unfortunate. And then I happened to come across a police newspaper, and the article, went on to read that, Eric Garner was responsible for his own death because he was overweight and was diabetic, and I mean, to just read this on top of, what already happened, it just, where does it end? I mean, where the audacity just gets piled on top of itself.
I mean, this is embedded into the culture of the police department, brutality. In other words, the police department can't exist without police brutality, without them being out there putting fear in people's, in areas they control, putting fear in people's hearts and people's minds. This is their way of having control over the community they come in, and that's what's sad about it. So it's not something that that could just be removed unless we just remove the whole 30,000 or so of police officers and Bill Bratton, and put somebody like me to have a whole new crew there that would deal with people more equally and just. So I mean, or somebody that has the credential to be able to have these officers and training officers to go into this community and do what they're supposed to do, and that is serve and protect, because that is their only job. Their job ain't nothing else, and that's why our tax money pays for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear, again by this case and the attitude of NYPD towards the public and towards Mr. Garner, that their attitude is not to be served.
Right. But the sad thing is that even after that happened, we end up seeing a man get choked in the train by police again. Right after Eric Garner was choked, we see another man getting choked in the train just because he went through the through the doors without paying. So they almost choked him out to death, and they ended up arresting him. And not only that, I mean, then we see another video of a man, police, taking out a gun and putting it in his face, and also the man getting stomped in the head. And this happened, the police officer that did that was Joel Edouard, and stomped on Jamil Kufi's head, and that was crazy. So, and then after that, just this Saturday, we hear that a woman get choked out because she was drilling in front of her building, but she was on the sidewalk. In front of her house, but she was doing it in the sidewalk. So whatever happened there, police ended up having to put a choke on her to arrest her, ended up arresting the 7-month pregnant woman that was 27 years old. Her name was Roseanne Miller, and I also arrested her husband.
What did you say she was doing in front of her house? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh, she was just using a grill in front of her house.
Oh, using a grill, like cooking, you mean?
Yeah, cooking grill. So police came, and I guess whatever happened, was told that you can't use the grill, and before you know it, she ends up being in a chokehold as well. So so this is the culture of the police department, and
they're going to make a criminal out of all of us yet. They're going to find something.
Yes, it's a systematical problem, and also we have to understand that a lot of us, like New Yorkers Against Brand, which also I'm part of, and other groups, we protested when Bill Bratton was appointed as police commissioner once again. And the reason we did that because we knew that he was going to bring that broken window policing back to the city, where he's not interested in targeting hardcore criminals, just interested in targeting minor offenses, because according to the broken window, these, target these minor offenses, these so-called people that committed minor offenses won't commit, great offenses in the near future. This is more of a predictive policing, locking somebody up today because 5 years from now, he's going to commit murder, so let's lock him up today. And it's crazy. And this is the problem we have because of the broken window policing that is being implemented in the community. Because everything, to use excessive force for somebody that supposedly was selling cigarettes. And the funny thing is that the call that was made there on July 17 was a call because there was people fighting. There was no call made about nobody smoking cigarettes or selling cigarettes. It was a call because there was a fight there, and this fight was being broken up by Eric Garner. Right. And when they got there, they didn't see Eric Garner, and they always harassed him. So they said, you know what, since the other two guys that was involved in the fight left, they said, you know what, let's go, you know, we ain't come here for nothing, so let's go bother this guy here. And that's where everything evolved from.
They're so used to seeing him as a criminal, like they're not about to, you know, shake his hand or thank him for breaking up a fight or anything like that. You know, like that's what's really insulting about the whole thing is that, I mean, you know, they should have been, you know, thanking him, and they couldn't bring themselves to do that. You know,
and that's why he was saying, you know, y'all keep harassing me. Every time y'all see me, you harass me. Every time y'all see me, y'all bother me. You know, and I'm tired of it. And everybody is tired of it.
Jose, I just I wanted to play a video from the funeral, outside the funeral at 265 Bergen Street in Brooklyn at the Bethel Baptist Church of Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. I was able to manage to ask a question. Okay, like, yeah, I don't know if you were there, but here it is.
A person who is carrying out a non-violent act and the use of his life in the process, that you were told that the entire city mourned, not only the immediate family, but all those who knew Eric, as well as those who feel the pain that they're going through. I think the police commissioner responded correctly. I think it needs to be clear on the use of the chokehold of many. In the earlier days, the police can identify that as just use your nightstick around someone's room-type area. And so I don't know if we did a good enough job to clearly specify how a person should be subdued, and that's what the commission is doing, and I think that it's in the right direction. How the message we need to do someone in a measure like this, and I think Mr. Brand is doing the right thing. I hope we continue to do this.
How should he have been situated?
I think that when you police tactics, there's a unit in the police department that deals with police tactics, that deals with how a person should be doing. They're trained to handle that. There are so many non-lethal tools the police that has, such as the taser. I'm a strong believer in the use of taser, as well as mace. So I'm a strong believer in using non-lethal methods. And I think the enemy has yet to acknowledge what caused the death. We don't know if the death was circulatory suppression on his chest. We don't know if it was because of how he was brought down.
Should he have been subdued at all?
They need to do that examination, and then the police department can make a more intelligent evaluation of what we should be doing.
Should he have been subdued at all?
I'm sorry.
As a former cop, how does it feel to see so many people so angry at family?
Well, I think the anger that people are experiencing is not due to this issue. It's due to the last 12 years of what we always stated, that when you create these gaps between a community because you overly use stop and frisk, so people are tending to be waiting towards their anger. And so we're seeing the results of 12 years of frustration, 12 years of being treated as a criminal in many of these communities. And that's what we're seeing. And so now we got to turn back that. And I think that we're going to start seeing that.
Should he have been subdued at all? He wasn't violent. He didn't have a gun or a knife. He wasn't being aggressive towards the cops.
And that's, those are the questions that the police tactics and those who are conducting investigations will make that determination. They shouldn't have been subdued at all. I'm a strong believer that when it comes down to dealing with nonviolent crime, that a conversation is better than incarceration. And I'm hoping that that's the message that we're going to see.
Jose?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, I was glad I was able to get my question in because one journalist that was standing next to me, had asked Eric Adams, how should Eric Garner have been subdued? And I was like, how about, like, not at all, I mean, what was to subdue? Like, he was not in any kind of he wasn't going off, he wasn't, so I really kind of annoyed me that journalist even asked that question. I was like, why would you even ask that? Like, not at all, but Eric Adams, this borough president, did answer his question, talking about various types of, like, mace or this or that, the other thing. And so I kind of couldn't understand that. I was like, because he didn't need to be subdued. He shouldn't have been, the cops shouldn't have been bothering him at all.
That's the whole thing about it. And the sad thing about that is that we actually had the commissioner and de Blasio actually saying that, the officer is innocent until proven guilty, and it's like they really not paying mind to the video and the facts that the video showed, that this man, Eric Garner, was no threat to either officer, and if he was to react in a threatful manner, I don't think these officers would have been able to subdue him, because, I mean, this guy was a huge guy, So once Daniel Pantaleo seen the other officers the other sirens, you could hear a little bit. When he heard the other sirens, that's when he decided to start creeping up behind him, and he grabbed his arm, and he pulled away, but he was pulling away because he felt that, he was within his moral and constitutional right to refuse to be arrested because he did not commit nothing wrong. And we have a lot of cases, too, that, that you have the right to self-defend yourself if you feel, even if a police officer is arresting, you feel that he is, forced to arrest you or putting your life in danger by trying to arrest you. You have the right to resist. And it's crazy because he put his arm away, but when Daniel Pantaleo jumped on his neck, you see Eric Garner with his hand in submission. He put his hand straight up in the air towards him, like saying, okay, you got me. And that didn't stop him, because he really let me tell you something, all right? De Blasio and Bloom, de Blasio, I had no idea what it should be put in the chokeholds. I mean, he should give me a chance to put him in the chokehold so he could see what it feels like and how fast his breath. All right, within a second, he'll start choking. All right, Bill Brad had no idea what it should be put in the chokehold. So they can't say that, we got to investigate to see if this was really a chokehold according to, to the Patrol Guide Rule 203-11. We're going to see what it says and how, if it really was a chokehold. So you're telling me, so this man was put in a chokehold for over at least 20 seconds. That alone right there, they say that within 10 seconds to 60 seconds, you'll die of suffocation on a chokehold. So within 20 seconds, he was put, then he let him go. He already lost his breath. He could not breathe no more. Now he was trying to gain his breath back and breathe again, and that's when he started screaming, I can't breathe. And what you see is police officers to mount on top of him, and not only that, you see the same one that put the choke on him, Daniel Pantaleo, grab his head, push it into the ground, and then put his knee on back of his neck, and he continued to scream, I can't breathe. And to these officers, it was like it did not matter. And that is so horrible to see something like that. And that's why they're shaking to their boots. That's why they want to go and all of a sudden they talk about retraining. They talking about, showing officers how to properly subdue people. It's too late for that because somebody died. Now it's time for you to hold these officers accountable. Every single one that was there and ignored, they're saying his cry for help. Even after he wasn't breathing, for me, he was already dead. and they holding him there. None of these officers, you tell me none of these officers are trained to know CPR? They are all trained to know CPR. Through the 6-month course that they take at the academy, they get trained with CPR, every single one of them. So they just neglect, they really did not care whether this man or Eric Garner live or not. And that's what makes it so dangerous, because these are the type of officers we have out there, and there is a lot more. And not only that, this officer also had lawsuits against him for criminal offenses of violating people's rights, harassing people. And he already cost taxpayers $30,000, and he still got a case pending. So what kind of officers do we have in the police department? This is something that in the near future we need to get into, to the point where we know the officer history before they even come into our community. If you have a history of violence, if you have a history of harassing people, if you have a history of whatever negative history you have, it's the right of the people in the community that this officer comes to serve. Just like if somebody has a criminal history, or somebody has child molester or whatever, rapist and stuff like that, they let us know when they're in this community. We need to know what kind of officer are in the community. And we need our public politicians to step up and put a bill together where we can get that information and know exactly what officers and their background who are patrolling and serving our community.
You know, it's amazing how they apply one set of rules, you know, to Mr. Garner, and then a completely different set of rules for, you know, Officer Pantaleo. You know what I mean? It's like, why don't they use, you know what I mean? Like here, this guy, you know, strangled this man and he died. And, oh, you know, we need investigation, but, you know, they just want to, they want to just, beat around the bush and confuse everybody about something that's, so simple. And
that's exactly what they're doing. Everything they're throwing out there with the help of the news media and, and a lot of these politicians is to confuse people, is to take people's attention from what they saw in that video. But that is the problem. That video is all over the world. And there is nothing that they could do, right, to deter people from seeing what they saw. That's one thing about video and the camera was become so important, and it has also become their enemy because they hate that. Even Bill Bratton just made a statement saying that people need to mind their business. People need to stop trying to record police and mind their business, because what they doing is agitating the situation more. And by video recording police when they're trying to carry out their duty or arrest someone, they're agitating that cop to act outside of himself and, and become more violent. That's what Bill Bratton is trying to say. So if I'm video recording a scene where police stop somebody, because of my presence there, I can make that police more violent. That's bullcrap. That thing is that whenever police become violent and aggressive is a choice he made himself. Because even in cameras, they continue to be violent. Even in camera, they continue to just do things that is not something that a normal person do. Because what happened in Brooklyn with the gentleman that got his head stomped by the police officer, Jaharil Kufi, who got his head stomped, this officer left away. He walked away, you see in the video, and he just come back while the other officers got him subdued, and out of nowhere, stomps in his head. I mean, what kind of officers do we have that have this type of mentality that, there is a very childish and dangerous personality that is out there in our community? And we need to know these officers' background. We need to know what kind of officers are serving that community. And that's together we're going to talk to Charles Byron, Ivan Byron, and we're going to try to see if we can work on creating some type of bill that will give the people the power to know who these officers are who are serving in our community, and what kind of history they're carrying behind them.
So, Jose, we only have about a minute or so left, but So yeah, I just wanted to kind of make the comment that, I mean, right, this is all going down with complete clarity of it all going on, as clear as day in this video. I mean, and what is amazing is that the cops never even tried to stop the person from filming. I mean, the video is like 7 minutes long, one of them. And,
right.
And Pantaleo, who was waving, at the end of it. So, like, this is all on film. So, like this is not like, okay, nobody's filming. I mean, here it is on film, and it's still like they want to make, their arrogance is just so over the top that they just want to make people, believe that you're not really seeing what you're seeing.
As long as there's no accountability and these officers are not being held accountable to the point where there'll be broader criminal charges, this is the type of culture that's going to continue to exist within the police department, and this is what exactly we're going to bring into our community.
So, okay, Jose, so tell people where they can find your website if they're looking for information.
Yeah, well, if you want to see a lot of hardcore videos of us doing CopWatch and see the type of officers that we run into, you could Google Illuminators of the Truth, or you could just Google my name, Jose LaSALLE, and you will get my Facebook, you will get my web pages, my blogs, you will get my YouTube, you will get everything. So you could Google Jose LaSALLE, LaSalleJose, and you'll get all the information. You can stay updated with all future events that we have happening and taking place.
So that's Illuminators of the Truth, and then your name, Jose LaSalle, LaSalle.
Yeah, just Google my name. I always say, and that's the best way to find everything dealing with what me and my brothers and sisters are doing out there.
Thank you, Jose, and thank you everyone for listening. Don't wait for it to get worse. That's all I gotta say. Please just start exercising your rights. Just like you gotta. I mean, it's no different than exercising your body. The same thing. Use it or lose it. Please tune in again next Tuesday. Power to the people.
Power to the people. Peace.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Is Awake Radio.
Awake Radio.
Awake Radio.
Awake Radio.
Awake Radio.
Awake Radio.
AwakeRadio.co.uk.